Okay, so in every problem we've done up until this point, the coefficient, when you tried factoring that trinomial, the coefficient of the square term was always what number? 1. Now we're at a point where the coefficient of the square term is no longer 1. In this case, it's 3. But the process is the same. You look for the GCF first. What's the GCF? 1. Then you go and you try factoring it as two binomials. Okay? Process is the same. So you ask yourself, though, I need two terms whose product is not p squared this time, but what? 3p squared. Well, what are the possibilities? 3p and just p. There's only one possibility. All right, you think the same way you did before. Then we go to the last. Just like we did before, -5. All right, it's negative, but let's look at 5 for right now. What are the only possibilities for 5? 5 and 1, right? 5 and 1. So, let's go ahead. It does not matter at this point where you put the 5, where you put the 1, because you're going to check. And you get better with this as the more you do. So let's put the 5 here and the 1 there and see if it works. This is that trial and error idea. Try something, doesn't work, try something else. If you get an error, try something else. Now notice I'm using FOIL to help me with this. Process is the same as before. The last sign's negative. What does that mean in here? They have to be different. So you could do this. You could say, all right, I'm going to make this positive, this negative, right? Am I done? No. What should I do? Check it. What's the outer? -15p. What's the inner? P. And when I add them up, what do I get? -14p. Is that what I wanted? No. That is not what I wanted. All right. So then if that's not what I wanted, what do you think you could then do? Nothing else to do? Remember a while ago I said let's put the 1 here, the 5 here. Someone else could have done what? Put the 5 here, the 1 here. Couldn't they? All right, let's try that. So obviously this is not the one that's gonna work. So let's suppose you did this instead. 3p, p, and instead of putting the 1 in the first, I'm gonna put the what? 5 and the 1 here. Trial and error. Now remember a while ago, she said we've done everything. No, we didn't. You could reverse the order. Switch the terms. Now the last sign's negative, right? Yeah. Last signs in here have to be what? Different. Okay. Well, let's say this is positive, this is negative. Check. What's the outer? -3p. What's the inner? And when I add them up, what do I get? +2p. I'm almost there. I want a what? -2p. So what does that imply by these signs? They have to be changed. So the answer then will be 3p minus 5 times p plus 1. And again, if you check it, let's do the FOIL. You have time to check. Check. What's 3p times p? 3p squared, which is what I wanted. Let's go to the last. What's a -5 times a +1? Which is what I wanted. Now, the only thing I got to check now is the middle term. Your middle term comes from the outer and the inner. What's the outer? 3p. What's the inner? When I add them up, what do I get? Which is what you wanted. So this is the answer. That's the answer. Okay? All right, let's try another one. Let's do one more, and then we'll work on this some more next time. Let's try this one. Let's try, okay, let's try this one. Let's try 3n squared minus 8n plus 4. 3n squared minus 8n plus 4. Process is the same as what we've been doing. What's the GCF? 1. All right, I go directly to the two binomials. Two binomials. Now, just like before, we look at the first term. See, before, that was just an n squared, right? So I knew that this had to be n times n. But it's no longer n squared. It's what? 3n squared. So you got to give me two terms whose product is 3n squared. 3n and n. That's the only possibility because 3 is prime, isn't it? 3 is prime. The only way you can get a product of 3 is 1 times 3. So let's say n, 3n. A while ago I put 3n first. Let's put n first this time. Does not matter. You're going to check. If it doesn't work, you'll try something else. Now look at the 4. The last term. What are the possibilities of 4? 2 and 2 and 4 and 1. What do you want to try? You want to try 4 and 1? Okay, let's try 4 and 1. Let's put the 4 here, the 1 there. Someone else could put the 1 here, the 4 there. Okay? You're going to check. The last sign's positive. What does that imply? They must be the same, so that's the easy kind. And they both must be what? Negative. So the person that wanted to put the 4 and the 1, should they go into the next problem? No, you got to check. What's the outer? Negative n. What's the inner? What? Negative 12n, right? What do you get when you add them up? Is that what you wanted? No. Is switching the 4 and the 1 going to help? Let's check. Let's check if switching the 4 and the 1 is going to help. So again, the last sign has to be the same. I mean, the signs have to be the same. They're both negative. Now let's check the outer this time. What's the outer this time? What's the inner this time? Negative 3n. When you add them up, what do you get? Is that what you wanted? No. So what does that imply about the 4 and the 1? It doesn't work. So then, what are you going to try now? 2 and 2. That's what you're going to try. So let's put the 2 here, 2 here. Obviously, there's only one way to put the 2 and the 2, right? And they're both negative, correct? Now let's check. What's the outer? What's the inner? What do you get when you add them up? Is that what you wanted? Yes. So there's the answer. So you factored this as n minus 2 times 3n minus 2. Okay? That's how you factor. Trial and error. And again, the more you do, the quicker you become with determining what could work. You're still going to get situations where you try something that doesn't work. You try something else. You're not going to always get it first. You're not going to get the answer right away. That's why you got to check. Okay? All right. So we'll do a few more with this next class period.